concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the Justice Department just announced it has charged 7 Russian intelligence officers with attempting to hack anti-doping agencies.
I hope that through today's charges, which fall far from the electoral arena of our prior charges, we can further educate ourselves as to the scope of the Russian government's disinformation and influence campaigns. I also hope that responsible members of the international news media will cast a suspecting eye on future hack and leak operations, which seek in part to manipulate stories in furtherance of Russian state interests. It is evident from the allegations in today's indictment that the defendants believe that they could use their anonymity to act with impunity in their own countries and on the territories of other sovereign nations, to undermine international institutions and to distract from their government's own wrongdoing.
Well, CBS News Washington correspondent Paula Reid joins us now to talk a little bit more about this. Do we have Dan? We don't have Dan Patterson with us, do we?
No, this is just for Paula.
Oh, okay, this is just Paula. Okay, so listen, infrastructure. Let's break it down. What did we hear from the DOJ? What's going on?
That's right. The Justice Department just unsealed these charges against 7 Russian military intelligence officers for hacking into anti-doping agencies. Now, this was not just occurring in the U.S. According to these charging documents, they were hacking into other anti-doping agencies in Canada, Monaco, Switzerland. So this is an international effort to hack into anti-doping agencies, and these justice officials allege this was done in retaliation for the fact that Russian athletes were called out for doping as part of the Olympics and were obviously banned from the Olympic Games. And this was done in retaliation. So the Justice Department said today they're indicting these military intelligence officers as a way to name and shame and hopefully deter them going forward. And there's no realistic expectation that Russia would actually extradite any of these people to face trial or face charges in a U.S. courtroom, but this is part of an ongoing effort by the Justice Department to name and shame folks who hack even on behalf of foreign governments. Now, there is some question about whether or not this is actually a deterrent to this kind of activity when no one is ultimately forced to go to jail or pay fines or anything like that. But today, the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania, where some of this hacking occurred, he said that he does believe this has a deterrent effect because it starts oftentimes a diplomatic conversation, even if it's an uncomfortable one. That's ultimately their goal, is to try to deter Russia from doing this. As you heard in that stop, this was part of a larger disinformation campaign that Russia has been undertaking over the past few years. Several of the people who've been charged in this indictment were also charged in the special counsel's investigation as part of the sort of just meddling and disseminating improper information during the 2016 campaign.
All right, Paula Reid reporting for us. Thank you, Paula. We appreciate it. All right, so with more on this, CNET senior producer Dan Patterson is joining us on the telephone. So, Dan, when we were listening to this, Anne-Marie and I said, this is some of the things that we've been talking to you about in our weekly series on hacking. And so we literally heard from Department of Justice officials going from A to Z, the things that Russians and other nefarious actors are conducting to meddle with all aspects of American infrastructure.
Yeah, this is a two-part attack. First is the coordinated influence campaign. The second part of this attack, according to the Associated Press, the Russians were able to breach a Pennsylvania-based nuclear energy company. Now, what this means is that critical infrastructure is vulnerable, as well as our information networks like social media. The attackers, it seems, were able to exploit those traveling for the Olympic Games. And this was part of a coordinated attempt that did not end with the Olympic Games. This is part of an ongoing effort by the GRU to disrupt all of those actors who they see as enemies.
So can we talk a little bit about how they were able to do this? And sometimes people, when you hear hacking, you think about like a really sophisticated process. But we heard the DOJ talk about phishing, which is sort of just sending out an email and seeing who responds.
That's exactly right. So phishing attacks are often the most simple forms of cyber attacks. And look, it is worth no one's time or effort to go through a very sophisticated form of meddling when you can simply phish your opposition. And during events like the Olympic Games, everyone is very busy with the coordination of the event itself, and often we drop our defenses. So we're not looking for that one little email or that one little attachment to an email that could cause us to give up our credentials. Now, what's likely to have happened here is that the Russian GRU did not stop with simply getting their initial target. They likely moved laterally across accounts and were able to extract a number of compromising documents that they will use for political purposes in the future.
So it feels like for a lot of Americans, Dan, when they think of hackers, and we're looking at the pictures of the folks that the DOJ says conducted these hacking attacks, that we imagine them that they're going to be like Neo or something from the Matrix. But in fact, phishing is something that you don't have to have sophisticated intelligence operatives to conduct these attacks. It is as simple, as Anne-Marie stated, as sending out some phishing emails. So again, the question that we always ask every week is how secure will be our election processes going forward?
Our elections are as vulnerable as humans. Look, every cybersecurity expert I speak with says that the best way to hack any system is to hack the humans involved, because we fall for tricks like this. In fact, you can buy for pennies on the dollar, not just on the dark web, on the ClearNet, you can buy software that will model phishing emails. Now, companies use this to do what we call penetration testing or pen testing. This is where they will test, if you've ever worked at a large company, they will test to see, well, do our employees fall for these types of attacks? This software is also used for malicious intent. So not only do we see coordinated attempts from state actors, we can see other copycat type of attacks